Hello everyone, welcome to the Unrealist. No lengthy intro today, no soundtrack extravaganzas. We're just going to talk about some new and extremely concerning information about the coronavirus and the response to it. Now, first and foremost, I'm sure some of you have been following this story closely. You've heard in the past few days about how researchers in China, how they discovered that although the median incubation period for coronavirus is 3 days, that's to say half of those infected with coronavirus they show symptoms within 3 days of exposure, and the other half, they took longer than 3 days after that exposure to show symptoms. That study, led by Dr. Zhong Nanshan, he's one of the world's leading experts on this novel coronavirus, it also found that in some cases, the incubation period for the disease can show symptoms as long as 24 days after exposure. I mean, you probably were thinking to yourself already that, more than 3 weeks, the 14 days was bad enough. So if you're thinking that, take that 24-day number, throw it away. The Global Times is reporting that a woman in northern China's Shanxi province was diagnosed with coronavirus, get this, 42 days after she got back from Wuhan. So remember this, people. We went from early on talking about the extreme end of the incubation being, what was it at first? Oh, it's 5 to 7 days. Then, okay, it's 7 days. Then it was 10 days to 14 days. A few days ago, it was up to 17 days. This week, now with that report, oh, it's up to 24 days now that you can show symptoms. Now today, we have a case of 42 days later. That's more than a month and another 2 weeks on top, people. Now, is it possible that this woman, she went to Wuhan and came back, wasn't infected there in Wuhan? She came home all the way from to Shanxi province and somehow maybe got infected way over in Shanxi province by some previously unknown case there. I guess that's within the realm of possibilities, so take that into consideration. But, I mean, still, just if it's 42 days, if that's what it turns out to be, the incubation in this outlier case, whether it's really 24 days or 42 days or somewhere in between, does it even matter at that point? This is terrible news. Our standard 14-day, 2-week quarantine, it's just woefully inadequate. I understand why the World Health Organization, the CDC, and the People's Republic of China would be resistant to increasing the time for quarantine up from 2 weeks. I mean, obviously, this is not a common occurrence. I mean, it's rare that you're going to have cases going beyond 2 weeks. But, it's not comforting to know that. I mean, holding tens of thousands of people in isolation for just the 2 weeks that we're doing now, I guess that's hard enough. Could you imagine upping that to 3 weeks? The impact that would have on the system? It's unthinkable. No country on earth could manage that. I mean, look at China. I mean, their economy is on the verge of collapse, or at least for this year. How would you house this massive backlog of quarantined people if you had to coop them up for that long? At the minute, this disease is beginning to strain the limits of what's practical in terms of combating its spread. Now, as if that's not bad enough, the news that, hey, this could be 24, maybe 42 days you can go without showing symptoms. Can we talk about the fact that the testing that we're depending on to screen travelers and make decisions on who to quarantine and who to release from quarantine? Last week, I saw a report on the case of a man who was given 3 tests for coronavirus, which all came back negative, before a 4th test gave a positive result for him having the virus. 3 false negatives, where fortunately the doctors strongly suspected that he had the coronavirus and called for a 4th test. They wound up being proven right. But a test that failed 3 out of 4 times in that one example is hardly a ringing endorsement for the test. And it's actually very dangerous, because if you test a person and you say, hey, you're negative for the virus, you're free to go, that person's going to have a false sense of, assurance, and he's just going to go and infect people. So in looking into this, it appears that, yes, in fact, the test is not very reliable. This has been evidenced here in the United States with those people being quarantined at the Marine Corps Air Station Miramar in California. On Sunday, February 9th, this was just a couple days ago as of this recording, the CDC told San Diego Public Health that all 4 people that they were holding in isolation had tested negative for coronavirus. They were discharged from isolation at UC San Diego. They were put back into the federal quarantine at Miramar with the other passengers back into that general population of people in the quarantine, those guys that landed from the evacuation flight. On Monday, February 10th, the CDC told San Diego Public Health that, further testing, meaning another test at the very least, revealed that one of the 4 patients actually tested positive for coronavirus. They had to go in and pluck that guy back out of the quarantine general population at Miramar and isolate him at the UC San Diego Health again. I mean, once again, a false negative may have led to this person exposing the people in the quarantine who may not have had it to the virus. So most of these strategies to contain the spread of this virus in our country depend on the assumption that we have a reliable way to test suspected persons for the infection. This, combined with the reality of now documented cases of people being asymptomatic for up to 24 days or even 42 days, if this outlier in Shanxi province, pans out, is, if that's any indicator, it shows that our policy is basically a placebo. It's kabuki theater meant to give a false assurance to the public that things are under control. Now, if this sounds alarmist, recall that as of right now, there is a cruise ship sitting in Yokohama Harbor, Japan, which as of yesterday at 8 a.m. had 135 people test positive for coronavirus just days after just one man with the virus left the ship. One man slipping through the cracks resulted in 135 cases on that ship and rising. Who knows when they give the update today what that number will be. Aboard the SS Diamond Princess, a ship carrying almost 4,000 people. So, one expert, Professor Gabriel Leung, he's the chair of public health medicine at Hong Kong University. He says that the implications of the World Health Organization warning on Monday, about cases in China being the, quote, tip of the iceberg, is that if the disease is not controlled, it could infect 60% of the world's population. Now, understand that the caveat here is that if it is not controlled, that's the key phrase. One presumes that the nations of the world, the totality of their efforts, will result in some non-zero impact on the disease's spread. Their combined effort, but that's 60%. That's a very high ceiling to work down from. So imagine if 2 out of every 3 people that came down with a debilitating and in some cases fatal disease. I mean, that's world-changing. Think about this. If the disease were only even just 1/10 as widespread as that prediction and only infected, say, 6% of the world's population. According to the World Population Clock, the current world population is over 7.7 billion people at the moment. 6% of 7.7 billion people is 462 million people infected. If 462 million people got coronavirus and the death rate was, let's say it was just a 2% number that some people like to throw around just to feel better, even though we really can't trust the death numbers out of China, 2% of 462 million people is 9,240,000 people dead. I mean, did you understand what I said? That's just a 6% case. If the no control scenario played out at 60% of world population infected, and we assume a mortality rate of, say, 2%, the number of dead would be 92,400,000 people dead. So, I'm not saying it would get that bad, but if there's even a 1% chance that it could, why are we not stopping any and all movement of people who've been to China in the last 2 months worldwide? The world has not seen a plague with the potential for that kind of lethal impact in over a century. That's just the dead, remember. About 15% of the people who get coronavirus, even if they survive, they require a lengthy hospital stay of weeks, if not a month or more. 15% of 462 million people infected is like 69 million people requiring hospitalization. Now, remember, that's just a 6% infected case. There may be only about 15 countries in the world who even have that many people in them total, let alone thinking about how many hospital beds there are in the world. So let's really hope that this coronavirus burns itself out and turns out to be just a major problem locally isolated to China, because if we're still talking about this growing in March and April, then in that case, all our lives are about to change radically, whether you actually catch the disease or not. That's all for this NeoUnrealist. If you want to help the channel, do me a favor, hit like for this video, leave a comment below, mash down on the subscribe button if you're not already subbed to the channel, and click on the notification bell beside it. You have to put it on the all setting to keep up with newer content. If you want to contribute directly to the channel and toss your hard-earned dollars and yuan into the tip jar, follow the links below to Patreon, Subscribestar, or PayPal, or if you watch this on BitChute, you can just click on the green tip pledge button on the video player. But most importantly, thank you for watching.
You are about to shit your pants.